Hi, you're listening to The Crime Cafe, and I'm your host, Debbie Mack. Before I introduce my guest, I'd like to remind you that each author interviewed at The Crime Cafe has contributed a story or essay to the Season 1 Crime Cafe story package, which only costs 99 cents. You can get it on my website at debbiemack.com under Crime Cafe. It's 16 novels, shorts, and essays for 99 cents. So that's a real deal. That's better than any box set that's out there. In any case, it's my great pleasure to have today Jeff Cohen, who is, he writes under the name E.J. Copperman also, and he has been called maybe the funniest mystery writer on the planet and the Dave Barry of the Jersey Turnpike. So Jeff, what say you to that?
I would like to know who the funnier person is on, like Venus. It's a little worrisome, but we're up to the competition.
Okay, well, fair enough. I think you're at least as funny as Dave Barry, if not more so. I don't know. I mean, who am I to judge?
Dave and I don't hang out at the same bar, so I don't know.
True, that's true. I mean, Dave is funny, but you're funny in your own way.
So, I like to think so.
I definitely think so. And let's start. I want to start off by just saying that you have a most impressive bibliography. I mean, in terms of the number of series that you've published.
Well, what we lack in quality, we make up in quantity.
Well, since you're working, or you're going to be releasing soon, an Aspergers mystery, I wanted to talk about those first.
Okay.
And I am personally familiar with them, so having read the first one. And tell me what inspired that particular series, and about the series in general, and about your next book.
Wow, that's a lot.
That's a lot, yes. Please feel free to expound.
Well, I wrote a character who had Asperger's in my first series, in the Aaron Tucker series a bazillion years ago. And he was sort of, I wouldn't say based on my son. He sort of was inspired by my son, I would say, who was, considerably younger at the time. Now he's 26. And he has Asperger's, and we, had the usual sort of family things that go on when you have a child who, needs some extra help in certain areas. But the current Asperger's series, the series with Samuel Honig was inspired more or less by the idea that someone with that kind of we wouldn't even call it a disorder necessarily. Samuel certainly wouldn't. He would think that it was, kind of personality trait. That someone like that would narrate the story himself. I had read a couple other books where it was like, somebody tells you about, this kind of quirky character they met. No boy. I wanted to see somebody, I wanted to kind of be inside their head. And because I write, crime fiction, it became a mystery series. But Samuel is not a detective, and he will tell you that repeatedly, actually. He answers questions for a living. His business is quite, straightforward. It's called Questions Answered. And he has a little storefront in what used to be a pizzeria. And if you come to his store or call him up and ask him a question, he will answer it if he finds it interesting. If he doesn't, he's going to probably tell you to go Google it and leave him alone. But we don't write about the ones that are, not interesting. So in the books, he always finds the question interesting. Otherwise, it would be a very short book. Can you answer this question? No. That's about it.
Not much fun.
Leave me alone. Go away. So that's where the series got started, and it's for me kind of I think every crime fiction writer in the last 100 years at least has had their notion of Sherlock Holmes, you know, and Samuel is kind of my Sherlock Holmes. In fact, I gave him the same initials so that he would, you know, kind of inspire that thought. But what he does is he considers it research because that's what he's good at. He, you know, until he opened the business, he was up in his mom's attic, living in his, what he calls his apartment, doing, you know, just researching things on the internet because he was interested in finding out about them. So he has this kind of very broad, you know, database of knowledge in his head. So he can, you know, every once in a while, if I need him to just know something, I can say, well, I did some research on that, you know, 6 years ago because I, you know, was bored on a Tuesday. And that way, you know, we can cut out a lot of, you know, kind of boring exposition if he just knows it. And that's where it came from. And the first book was The Question of the Missing Head, was about a, you know, this head that got missing. It was set in a cryogenics lab, and they, you know, had lost one of what they call their guests. Somebody had donated, or at least, you know, paid to have their cranium preserved, in the hope that someday not only would science find a way to cure whatever it was that killed them, but also to attach a detached head to some other body. And the head had gone missing. So Samuel found that interesting and came to investigate, and things go steadily downhill from there. But in the new book, and the one that's just coming out now, is called The Question of the Unfamiliar Husband. And that is, in that one, a woman comes to him and says, I want, you know, can you tell me who that man is in my bed who says that he's my husband? And, you know, she claims that, you know, they were married when she was, you know, sort of incapacitated and doesn't remember anything about it, and wants to know who he really is. So that's where the jumping off point goes. And what do you know? Things go steadily downhill from there.
Naturally. Sure.
That's the idea. You know, it's a murder mystery. Is somebody's got to, you know, go belly up at some point. So things happen, and, you know, then Samuel has more questions to answer.
Well, I got to tell you that I admire anybody who can turn murder mysteries into funny stories. So,
well, the key really is to not so much focus on the fact that somebody's dead, you know, because that's not very funny, unless it's somebody everybody hated, in which case, like, why would the reader care about them getting justice? So for me anyway, the way you kind of find humor in that is to examine the reaction that other people have to the event rather than the event itself. I will never write a funny murder. I don't think that's possible. At least not, I can't do it. But the way all the characters around, you know, the deceased react to the event is more interesting to me anyway, because I find character more interesting than plot. And longtime readers probably have realized that by now. So, you know, so that's where I'll, you know, kind of find it. And also all of the series right now are first-person narratives. So quite often, not in Samuel's case, but in the other ones, you'll find that the humor kind of comes in the narrator commenting on what's going on.
Is it a matter often of the narrator's perspective then?
Yeah.
The way they perceive things?
Yeah, that's kind of how it works. It's
I know with Samuel, it was definitely that way.
With Samuel, again, he's not trying to make you laugh. He doesn't
exactly.
He's not approaching it that way. He doesn't think it's funny. Except on very rare occasions. Sometimes he will try to be funny about something and it's, you know, quite bad at it. But again, I think in those books especially, the humor comes in how people react to him, because the way he perceives things and the way that, you know, he kind of lives his life, he thinks that he's acting very logically. But a lot of the things that he does would be considered extremely unusual among people who, you know, don't have some form of autism somewhere along the line. So the humor comes in people kind of reacting to what he's doing, him thinking that he's just, you know, being completely, you know, reasonable about what's going on, and everybody else kind of looking at him like, you know, what is the deal with this guy?
Yeah.
So, it doesn't hurt also that all my narrators are from New Jersey. So, you know, we speak the national language of New Jersey, which is sarcasm, except Samuel, who's never sarcastic.
Not intentionally at any rate.
No, I don't think you can be unintentionally sarcastic. I think that would be tough.
You might be perceived as sarcastic.
Well, yeah, certainly.
That's kind of what I meant. Okay, but I noticed that in your previous series, you used puns a lot as titles. And I thought
it kind of became a habit, you know. I'm not a huge fan of puns. I hear all the time that it's the lowest form of humor, and I don't think that's true.
I agree with you there.
Yeah, you know, I think it's quite clear that, you know, the lowest form of humor is probably the Three Stooges, but puns don't bother me. It's just I didn't want to be kind of locked into that box where I always had to have one. But, you know, publishers being the way they are, they'll come back and go, well, this one doesn't have a pun in it. And you'll go, yes. and the response generally is, well, all the other ones did, so this one has to as well. So, you know, you kind of get locked in that. It's like the Aaron Tucker series, the first one that I did. The first novel, which I kind of wrote by accident, was called For Whom the Minivan Rolls. And the second book, then the publisher said to me, well, we should do another kind of Hemingway, you know, parody thing. And I was like, I really don't want to do that. I don't want to be the Hemingway parody series, you know. But unfortunately, what happened in the second book was that the victim was this guy that Aaron knew from high school days that they always used to call Crazy Legs. And the title got stuck in my head, A Farewell to Legs. And so we had to use it, you know. So now I'm stuck with this Hemingway thing. So then, you know, the rest of the books after that kind of became puns, and, you know, we got lost in that for a while.
Oh my goodness.
And the fact is that in the Asperger series, the original title of The Question of the Missing Head was Cooler Heads, because it was a frozen head. So I thought that was kind of cool. The publisher went, well, we kind of want to have the idea of questions in there. And, you know, it has more of a Sherlock Holmes feel to it and stuff. And I was like, okay, you know, I can roll with that. You know, like, you want a different title, we'll come up with a different title, you know, whatever works.
Well, that's very interesting that you kind of stumbled on that whole literary genre.
Oh, I've stumbled on writing books was a complete and total accident. You know, I was a screenwriter, and a very unsuccessful one, and spent 20 years trying to sell screenplays with various degrees of no success at all. And when I got stuck on the idea for my next screenplay, because it kept kind of coming up as a first-person narrative in my head, I didn't know what to do about it. So I started writing it as if it were going to be a book, because I knew it wasn't a book. But I figured this way I can fool the character into thinking he's telling the story, and this will teach me, in writing it, I'll learn how to write the screenplay. And I got about halfway through, and I was like, well, it's about half a book now. And I didn't know what to do with that, but the freelance writer in me said, if you write half of something, you finish it, because they're not going to pay for half. And so I finished it, and, you know, after 20 years of trying to sell screenplays and not selling any, I sold the book in 5 days. So go figure it out.
My goodness.
Yeah.
So you really stumbled into novel writing too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It was a complete and total accident. Yeah. I never intended to do that. And now I'm on like book 15 or something.
Well, I'm stunned and impressed.
Imagine how I felt.
I take it you're a big movie fan, since you had a whole series about movies with movie title puns and
Well, yeah, I mean,
screenplays.
well, I didn't try to write screenplays. I actually wrote screenplays.
Well, you wrote them.
Trying to sell them was the difficult part.
Yes.
That was kind of the tricky part. Yeah, I mean, I write screenplay. I have written screenplays, and I teach screenwriting at Drexel University in Philadelphia. And I've always been a huge movie fan, particularly comedy. So when the Aaron Tucker series was, obviously going to be finished, when we weren't going to do another book, and it wasn't because the publisher didn't want it, but he kind of felt like it was time for me to move on to a bigger publishing house, and I sort of agreed with him. When that time came around, I was like, well, I had never written a book that wasn't an Aaron Tucker book before, so I didn't know what to do. And I thought, well, if Aaron was in different circumstances, if he didn't have the wife and the kids and the dog and all that stuff, and he wasn't a freelance writer like I was, because when I wrote the first book, like, who thought anybody was going to read it? What would his life be like? And I thought, my kind of fantasy business would have been to buy myself a one-screen movie theater and show only comedies, and show like a classic comedy first and then a contemporary one later on to get people to actually show up. And so I knew I couldn't do that because I was never going to have enough money to do any of that stuff, and the business would probably die in 3 months anyway. But I figured that doesn't have to be my problem if the person who's doing it is a fictional character. So I made Elliot Freed up so that he could have a good time doing that, and I didn't have to pay for anything. It all works out in the end. So we had fun with that. That was a fun series. I enjoyed that a lot. That was, unfortunately, it only went 3 books, and then the publisher went, we're really actually in this business to make a profit, so let's move on to something else.
Oh my goodness. That's the Comedy Tonight series?
Yes, it's the Comedy Tonight series, formerly known as the Double Feature series.
Ah, and I noticed that you're self-publishing those now.
Yeah, we got the rights back to those, and they are now available, as ebooks. But you can also get a print-on-demand version if you want it.
And what do you think about? What are your thoughts on self-publishing versus traditional publishing?
I've never self-published anything original. I've never, tried to just start from scratch and write something and self-publish it. So I don't really have a frame of reference. Mm-hmm. For me, the only thing that I've done is put out books that had already come out that were now out of print. And I thought, well, let's keep them available. So that's really all I know about. I can't give you an intelligent opinion on self-publishing because I haven't actually done it.
Well, as somebody who has self-published some books, do you feel that they're getting seen?
That's a darn good question. Based on the royalty statements I get, they're being seen by a very small number of people. But again, I think you're dealing kind of with an anomaly, because it's a product that if people had wanted to buy it before, they could have gotten it in a physical book for $6.99 or something like that. So I don't think it's representative of what self-publishing is. Mm-hmm. I think that there are people who are self-publishing things that they just write as an original story and put it out there, and they're doing quite well with it. So my experience is not something that I think is representative.
Okay. You also have 2 more series coming out next year and the year after that. That's
right. Well, I mean, what made a lot of this possible was the Haunted Guest House series, which started. I'm writing the 8th book now, and the 7th one comes out in December. That's called Ghost in the Wind, and when the publisher asked me to use a pseudonym for that series, and we came up with E.J. Copperman, those books did quite nicely. So that meant that I could start coming out, like writing other things and kind of send them out to publishers and see what they thought. And as long as E.J. Copperman was doing okay, they might be more interested. So there will be 2 more series. The one that starts next year is coming out in June of 2016. That's a series in which a woman who writes crime fiction, writes, kind of not really cozy mysteries, but sort of, I guess kind of procedurals. Her character is this guy named Duffy Madison, who is a consultant with the county prosecutor in New Jersey. If there's a major crime, the local police don't generally handle it so much as the county prosecutor will send out an investigator or a team of investigators. So he's a consultant with them, and he works strictly on missing persons cases. And so she's finishing up the, I think, 5th book in the series when the story begins. And she is contacted by a consultant from the county prosecutor's office who says that his name is Duffy Madison, and he believes that he is the personification of her fictional character. It's a little weird, but, you'll get used to it after a few pages. And I had a lot of fun with that one, so I think other people might as well. And the first book in that one is called Written Off. And that's, like I said, it's coming out in June. And then the following year at some point, there will be the first book in a series about a theatrical agent whose clients are all animals. She doesn't work with humans at all, except like the ones who own the animals, who she considers an inconvenience. And in that book, in the first book in that series, she's representing this dog who's trying to get a part as Sandy in the latest revival of Annie on Broadway. And his owner ends up, kind of face down in the dog's water dish with a knife in his back. So she has to kind of like start working from there. And things go steadily downhill.
Naturally.
Sure. That's the idea.
And you do all this in a funny way.
One hopes. As my friend Ian Abrams at Drexel always says, nobody wants to see your character have a nice day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What's the point?
This is what I'm saying. It's nice for them, but not so much for, like an audience or a reader.
Exactly. Well, I only have a couple of other questions. For one thing, do you ever sleep? You have so much going on, so many series, so much that you're writing.
I have worked it out to the point where I can, in my head, I've scheduled myself so that as soon as one book is done, I have a week or 10 days, something like that after that, before I have to start the next one. So I'm constantly, kind of working to a deadline. And, I've been freelance for 30 years. So I'm really good at hitting deadlines. And that really isn't, it's not a mystical process. It's not magic. It's a job like anything else, and you sit down and you do it. And if you write 1,000 words a day, which isn't that much, you'll have a book in 2.5, 3 months. So you can do 4 a year. And that's, at the moment, that's what I'm doing, and hopefully if people, keep liking the books and buy them, I'll continue to do that.
Well, that's fantastic. And since I got on the subject of movies, what are your favorite movies?
Oh, man, we don't have that kind of time.
I know. But pick...
I could give you a list of 50,
I know.
Just scratching the surface.
Desert island movies, like you only have to...
Let's see. First of all...
agree with you.
No, see, that's no good, because that assumes that I'm on a desert island that has a DVD player.
I know.
At that point, I'm looking for a documentary called "How to Get Off a Desert Island with Nothing But a DVD Player." So that's really, that scenario doesn't work for me.
Actually,
yeah, I would think. I think we should work on that.
Maybe I'll make that movie.
I'll consult.
Great.
Actually, if you want to hire my son, he'll help you. He's a film and video graduate, so he's got a degree and he knows what he's doing.
Fantastic.
I don't, but he does. Oh man, Desert Island. I can give you 10 maybe.
Okay.
Wow. At least 3 by the Marx Brothers. So it would be probably Monkey Business, Horse Feathers, and Duck Soup. North by Northwest, certainly. Young Frankenstein, certainly. My Favorite Year. Casablanca. I'd have Casablanca. You know, you can't actually be like, you know, a walking around adult without, you know, seeing and loving that one. How many is that?
That would be 7, I think.
7? Okay, I can give you 3 more. Let's see. What can I leave out? I love Galaxy Quest. I show that in class about a couple of times a year. I'm a big fan of, let's see, gotta be a few others. There's too many things I wanted to, well, what am I thinking? Raiders of the Lost Ark, gotta have that. And just to be different, let's see, it's gotta be something different. I'm a big fan of The Stuntman, actually, if you've ever seen that one.
I've never.
You should. You would like it.
Stuntman.
Yeah.
I'll have to check it out.
1980, I think it was. Peter O'Toole, Barbara Hershey.
I love him.
Yeah, you'll like it. If you love him, you'll love this movie. It's great. And The Lion in Winter is good.
Yes.
Inherit the Wind is good. There's lots of them.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I know. It's
actually in a couple of weeks. I am fulfilling a lifelong fantasy. Right here in Jersey, there's going to be a screening at the NJPAC of Blazing Saddles, followed by a Q&A with Mel Brooks.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. I'm going to be in the 4th row. Okay.
Oh, my God.
Because seats in the 3rd row were $350. So we're not doing that.
But the 4th row.
Still, 4th row, then you can do it, you know.
Very cool.
Yeah.
God, I would drive to Jersey to see that.
Well, I don't have a ticket for you. My whole family's going to be there.
I'll sneak in.
Yeah, go for it. Tickets are definitely still available because I heard an ad for it on the radio.
Wow. That is so cool.
I'm saying.
Well, on that note, I just want to thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thanks for inviting me.
Talking to you, and I'm looking forward to your next book.
Me too.
So, excuse me. On that note, I'll just conclude by reminding you that you can get the Crime Cafe story package from my website, debbiemack.com, and click on Crime Cafe, where you can also buy Crime Cafe merchandise like T-shirts, coffee mugs, etc., etc. And with that, I will conclude the program. And thank you again, Jeff. It's been wonderful talking to you. And
it's always fun, Debbie. Thanks.
Sure thing. And we'll be back again in 2 weeks. Thanks.